So we're back today on the 99 Oldsmobile Aurora, and I just wanted to show a video on how you could easily swap the transmission fluid without dropping the pan. So basically what I did is I started with 2 empty jugs. This one was an oil container, just happened to be a leftover one I had, and it holds 5 quarts, and this is an empty gallon of water that I had empty, so I used that for the overflow. So basically what I did is, after you take off the radiator support, which is basically just these bolts, and they're, I think if it's stock it should be all 10 millimeter, but I had 2 replacements, so one was 11, one was 1/2 inch. But anyway, so there's a bolt here, here, and then inside these columns there's 2 holes for 2 bolts, and then this one a stud goes through from the bottom, and you could just take the nut off the top. And on the back here is a plastic clip which I broke, so I'm gonna try and pull that out with pliers to attach the hose back to it. And then the same thing on the other side. There's 3 things to take off there. Those are all 10 millimeter. So basically it mounts here. There's the bolt that stays in there. There's threads behind it. And then the 2 bracers on the back side, I didn't show those, but they're on the back side, so the bolt will go in this way. And those 2 were replaced on mine, so they weren't 10 millimeter. And that plastic clip goes through this retainer, and it goes on the back. It pinches together like this. So I'm gonna see if I have another clip, since that one disintegrated. Basically then you just take that off, you just pull it straight up. And then this is the transmission cooler line that goes into the radiator. And you can see this will spin on you. So what I did is I pushed this hose down while I loosened, and then it comes out relatively easy. It's a 16 millimeter, so I used a flare nut wrench. It's kind of really impossible to get in there without taking off the support. So, and then you also, if you want to put a wrench on here, it's 1 1/8". But I found it's like impossible with this vent tube. I didn't want to break the plastic on here, so I just let it be. Alright, so once you get all this hooked up, now this end is the same end that's on here. I ended up cutting one off a Cadillac at the junkyard, but you may be able to get one of these at like Napa with the preformed lines and just cut the end off like right here, so that you have like a 2-inch piece to attach a hose with a clamp like that. But I think junkyards are the best friend for that. So it's kind of, I understand this might be impossible for some people, but I just wanted to show it as an alternative to dropping the transmission pan and going that route. So, and this is where you add your transmission fluid right there. Dipstick looks like that. Now there is cold and hot lines on here. I find the cold to be virtually inaccurate, but yeah, I can't really focus on it. But the hot line is what you want to go for. But you can only do that after you test drove the car for a while. And I find that as it gets hotter, it'll go up and up and up. So if you go by that cold line, you'll probably overfill it. I've done that before. But if you do that, you can just get a turkey baster and suck it out the top and get the level to where it gotta be. So I keep a turkey baster in this bag just in case I overfill it. It's pretty easy to do. And one of these flexible funnels really helps to get down in there, because that way you don't have to take off all the air box and whatnot. I did have to take off the breather tube box because it gives you more room, and it's relatively easy. It's just, I think I ended up changing the clamp with one of these. I think it originally had a plier clamp, I can't remember, but that's the, so basically you just start the engine, and then the transmission fluid will go down into your setup here. I just clamp the line on so it doesn't bounce all over the place, because there's a decent amount of pressure that comes out of that tube. So you want to make sure, I put 2 things to pinch it just so that when it was empty it didn't like tip over, because it was kind of pulling it at an angle. So maybe a longer line would help, but whatever. So the first run I put the tube in here and I filled it up, and it took it to just about 5 quarts. I got nervous, so at like here I stopped the engine and I went over to this jug and it filled it up like a little bit, and then I shut the car off and then I poured this into here and it was just about at the 5 quart mark. So I got that as my reference on how much comes out of the tube before it starts just pulling air, and you'll see there'll be big gaps in the fluid that comes down, and it's you could just see it's barely flowing. So I shut the car off at that point, and then I just add. So I only bought 2 gallons of transmission fluid. I used the Dexron 6 because I think it's just way better than Dexron 3, is what it called for from the factory. But I've put this in once already, and this is after 30,000 miles. I was going to change it again just because I figured it needed it. Because when you do it this method, you don't get all the fluid out, and I would doubt that you get all the fluid out with even dropping the pan. But so I was able to get 5 quarts out at a time now. If I bought more fluid, I could just keep running it through and flush it even more, but I couldn't remember how much came out, and I thought it was less than what did. So, and this is a good method to know how much to put back in, because if you don't measure what comes out, you're just going to be guessing when you add it. And I found that I tend to overfill it, that method. So I think this method I should be a lot closer with. So once I was done draining it, I put 2 extra quarts in since I had 8 quarts. So 8 minus 5 left me with 3 extra quarts. So I put 2 quarts in so that I have 6. That gave me a quart to play with, to add or top off or adjust as needed. So after I put the 2 extra quarts in, ran the engine again, put it in here, and then I shut it off, added the rest, like 5 quarts. So now I have like 1 quart left in that jug over there. So basically I'm going to check the level after I test drive it and see where I'm at. But basically all you got to do is hook this line back up. It's righty-tighty. And hook the radiator cover back up, and that's pretty much it. The breather tube. So it's really, I think it's quicker and easier than dropping the pan, but that's just my preference. Alright, see you guys later.